Hello, Lindsay. How are
Hey,
you
Aubrey.
doing?
Hey, doing good, Aubrey. How are you?
Excellent. I have a question for you.
Okay.
Michelle and I talked about this recently, but I don't know
Yeah.
for you. When was the last time you wrote and mailed a letter?
Oh my gosh, it's been probably a couple of years at least. It's been a while. I can't even think of the last time, Aubrey. What about you?
Right? Like maybe a thank you card, but an actual
Yeah.
letter? It's been a long
Yeah.
time since the invention of email,
Sadly,
probably.
I used to write a lot of letters in middle school, and in high
Yes,
school,
I
and
had a pen pal. Yes, absolutely.
yes.
So yeah, this is interesting. This is part 2 of a 3-part series about general task 1. So Michelle and I recorded about informal task 1 letters to friends or very close, family.
Yeah.
Stay to the end for details if you missed it. You can definitely listen to these out of order and hit follow for part 3. We'll do very soon about formal letters.
Okay, good.
General task 1 is tricky, right, Lindsay?
Yeah, because we don't really write letters anymore these days. So this is not something that, like we said, we're not well practiced with this. Right?
Exactly. And it's very different than writing an email where we're not wordy. We're like very brief to the point in these emails usually, right? Texting totally different. So you need to practice the skill of letter writing that's kind of gone the way of the dinosaur.
Or the dodo.
Yes, or the dodo. Exactly.
Or the dodo.
It's gone.
Yep. All right. So where do we start today? What do we have to know?
Yeah. So for the task achievement score, tone is extremely important. The examiner is looking for your tone to match who you're writing to be appropriate. So the
Okay.
vocabulary and grammar structures you use are different depending on who you're writing to.
Okay, so it's all about who this letter is going to. All right, so then in this episode, we're going to share some high scoring vocab plus an example of a band 9 essay, right?
Exactly. So let's first talk about when should you write a semi-formal essay?
Okay. So who would be these people that we would write this, you take on this semi-formal tone, Aubrey? Like what kind of, What
So
do
we
you think?
use a semi-formal tone when talking to someone that we know fairly well, but not, really close friends, family members that we would write very informally to. So this is going to be like neighbors, coworkers, acquaintances, anyone that you know fairly well. You definitely know their name. You have spoken to them before, but they're not on this close friends and family level where you're going to use slang and idioms and really informal vocabulary. It's a little more professional than that.
Yep, definitely. And I know because when we do like a group text with my neighbors, like we live in a townhouse and we have houses touching our house, I'm always thinking a bit more about my choice of how I'm going to word things. It is really that balance between formal and informal.
Yes,
It's not formal.
I think this is the most difficult because with friends, you can say anything, they don't care.
Yeah.
With formal, it's some stranger, that it doesn't
totally.
really matter. You're never going to see them again, maybe. But semi-formal, you're trying to, you can't be overly friendly, but you want to be polite. It is trickier.
The relationship matters, right? But so it's tricky. So this is good. Yeah.
Again, we set this informal tone with both vocabulary and ideas as well as grammar, because some grammar is much more formal or much more informal. So idioms, slang, and a lot of casual vocabulary might be too informal for this, but some idioms and casual vocabulary will strike that correct balance, right? You're going to be writing the same types of things you would say to an acquaintance, to a neighbor.
Okay. So where can we get vocabulary and ideas for semi-formal essays? Like what should we be consuming, Aubrey, to prepare in case we get this kind of essay?
Yeah, so definitely listen to podcasts, whatever you're interested in, true crime, pop culture, travel. Of course, all of the vocabulary won't be appropriate, but you are going to be learning phrases, vocabulary that's perfect for these semi-formal letters.
Yeah, and also keep watching television shows and movies. You should be anyways to prepare for IELTS broadly, but it will prepare you for this kind of question. So sitcoms, comedies, right?
Dramas, yes.
Maybe
all of those.
documentaries.
Yes, definitely, right?
Yeah.
All of whatever you're interested in, you want your IELTS prep to be engaging. So whatever you're enjoying listening or watching, that's where you want to get this vocabulary.
Now, there's a really good documentary on right now called The American Revolution. Have you seen it, Aubrey?
No.
It's a Ken Burns documentary, and he's super famous for good documentaries.
Interesting.
It was, so see if you can catch that. It should be recorded somewhere. I think it's an 8-part series, just goes through the 100, 200 years of American history. Really
Amazing.
interesting.
Check that out. And our recommendation is for every 30 minutes of a podcast or a TV show, 4 to 5 vocabulary words that you're adding to your notebook with the sentence you used it in. And then, of course, use it actively in practice, speaking questions and these essays so that you're ready, you have them ready on test day.
Yeah, I like that. That seems like a good cadence. So every 30 minutes, 4 to 5 new words are written down. It's not every word we hear that we're going to write down. That's going to overwhelm us.
If you have a list of 100 words after a half an hour show, it's going to be extremely difficult to actually add any of those to your active vocabulary.
Yes, 100%. What about linking phrases? What about semi-formal linking phrases?
Right, because some linking phrases are too informal and some are extremely formal. So you want to avoid those in semi-formal essays. There are quite a few that are very neutral, that aren't, too informal or too formal. For example, however, truthfully, right? We would use these when writing a note to a neighbor.
Yep. Frankly would be another. For example, this feels like something I would put in a letter to my neighbors. Yes, indeed.
Exactly, right? Not overly informal, but not so extremely formal. Like the ones in part 3, we'll share some of those more formal linking phrases that you would want to reserve for a formal letter.
Okay, Aubrey, we are back for a task 1 question. Let's go through a little example here, shall we?
Yes, we're going to read a task 1 question with the bullet points, and then we're going to go through paragraph by paragraph what we would write in this semi-formal letter, and we're going to compare. We're going to point out the semi-formal vocabulary and phrases and what maybe would be, too informal or too formal.
Yeah, this is really an important skill to build here. So shall I read the question?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Write a letter to your neighbor about the noise that has been coming from their apartment late at night. Oh boy.
So then you have these bullet points, right? In your letter, explain how the noise has been affecting you, give details about when it usually happens, and suggest a polite solution. So those bullet points are really important for the general task 1 letter. You need to share at least 2 details per bullet point in order to satisfy this task response score.
Yeah, this happened to me when I was living in New York. But it wasn't a letter. I had to talk to them, just knock on their door. And it was stressful. Oh my God, apartment buildings are quite hard when it comes to music, right? Because you can really hear it could have your walls are vibrating, right? With the music. Oh, difficult.
Yes, that happened a lot. I remember someone hitting was it the floor or the ceiling? I can't remember, with like a broom handle, because our kids would be really loud or like running around and stomping. I think they were hitting the floor, if I remember right.
Sure. So I'd
this
much
would
rather
be maybe a letter someone would write if they like don't dare come and talk to you in person. Then maybe write this letter and slip it under your door.
Sure, probably better. All right, so let's see what this letter might look like. So we have those bullet points that we have to fulfill. Aubrey, where should we go? How should we look at this?
So remember that you will know this person's name. So you would not want to start it with like, dear sir or madam. IELTS does tell you how to begin your letter, so just use that. We're going to assume here we write like, dear Debbie would have their name, comma. And then I'll go ahead and read this first paragraph, answering that first bullet point of explain how the noise has been affecting you.
Okay.
All right. I hope you are doing well. I am writing to let you know about a small concern regarding the noise in your apartment late at night. Truthfully, I hesitated to mention it because I know everyone has their own routines. However, it has recently been affecting my sleep, especially on weekdays when I need to be up early for work.
Yes. So we're just going bullet point by bullet point. So each paragraph answers a bullet point, right?
Exactly, right? So, and that's how you want to format these essays. In each individual paragraph, answer 1 bullet point. That's the best way to organize it and make sure that you give at least 2 details per bullet point. So notice the linking phrases here. You truthfully, I hesitated. However, it has recently been affecting. You can see how we have this semi-formal tone, not being overly formal, but I am staying quite professional. But I also did start it in a friendly way, right? I hope you are doing well. This is something we'd say to an acquaintance, to someone that we know, but we're not super close to.
Exactly. That's a great phrase for this semi-formal tone. And you have achieved the goal of the first bullet point, which is explain how the noise has been affecting you. It's that you haven't been sleeping, especially on weekdays.
Exactly. And then notice the lack of super friendly banter, you know, because we don't know them that well. And then also we're not adding really informal language like saying, I have to get up super early or way early in the morning. I might say that to a friend. That's too informal for a semi-formal letter.
Maybe if you're explaining to a friend what's going on with the situation, you might use those words, but that's a different person that's consuming this. So that would be a more informal kind of situation, right?
Exactly.
Semi-formal. Okay. So then in the second paragraph, let me read that. So you say the noise usually starts around 11:30 p.m. and continues for an hour or more. For example, the sound of loud music and what seems like moving furniture can be heard quite clearly through the wall. Frankly, I didn't realize how much sound carries between these walls, so I'm guessing it's the same for you, and I thought I should let you know.
Nice. Okay. So yes, this is tricky because you have to answer those bullet points directly, right? And here you're asked to give details about when it usually happens. So that's what we're sharing here. You're giving, it starts usually around 11 p.m. and continues for an hour or more. And then you're giving details about what's happening at that time. These linking phrases, for example, and frankly, which are good semi-formal tone.
I like those. Really good linking phrases throughout this entire letter. Love it.
Yeah. And then if you look at some of these phrases, to say it can be heard quite clearly is not overly formal, but definitely more formal than saying like super clearly, right?
Right.
We're not using that really informal language we would with a friend. We're keeping it a little more polite, but professional.
And in addition to that, you're using the passive voice here, right? So that automatically fits pretty well for semi-formal, I think. Because if you're talking to someone that's informal, I can hear it, right? So you don't need to hide anything.
That's a really good point. That passive voice also gives us a great semi-formal tone. We don't use that nearly as often with friends, right? We're in the active voice. We're super friendly. And that's different for a semi-formal letter.
Like it.
And
so far, we're scoring high on this.
Yeah, right? Yeah. This, I thought I should let you know, instead of maybe a more formal option, like I thought I should bring this to your attention. That you might use in a formal letter, but that would be too formal for a neighbor.
Yeah, that's really nice. It's articulate. I thought I should let you know, but it's not overly formal or stuffy. Right?
Exactly.
Or something like,
I'll read
go ahead. Nope,
I was going to say, I'll read our next paragraph here. So this, again, the bullet point is suggest a polite solution.
Okay.
And so we have here, would you mind keeping the volume a bit lower after 10 p.m.? Another option might be to place felt pads under chairs to reduce scraping sounds. I think that would really make a difference. Thank you very much for your understanding. Please feel free to reach out if you would like to discuss this further.
Okay, so you've offered you've achieved the bullet point, right? So you've offered two solutions, two ideas. And have we done it politely? I would say so.
Definitely,
how do we know?
Right? We have this really polite phrase, would you mind? This is polite and semi-formal.
Yep.
And also, I think that would really make a difference. Instead of something really formal like, I believe a small adjustment like this would make a drastic difference, right? There are more formal phrases that would feel inappropriate for a neighbor that you have probably chatted with a few times.
Yes, I love this letter because we've got the right tone, the semi-formal tone. We're using the linking words we talked about, and we are addressing each bullet point methodically, right?
Exactly. Oh, this is so tricky. There's so much that goes into these general task 1 letters. And this is something students often forget about, is striking the right tone. So I'm excited for this series so that you can see examples of each one, for informal, semi-formal, and formal, to really get a good idea of how to set that tone.
Yeah, guys, go and check out IELTS Energy 1550, terrific tone for IELTS Part 1, informal letters. Check that out. All right.
Yes, that was part 1 of this series. And that informal letters are to like a friend or a family member, some coworkers if you know them really well. So you want to be ready for those informal letters as well.
Yes.
Definitely check out that episode if you missed it.
Yep. And hit follow so you don't miss any of these parts of series. We do series a lot on this show, so you definitely don't want to miss a single section of a series. All right.
Absolutely. Part 3 will be formal letters, so don't miss it. Hit follow here on the show.
We'll be ready for it. Sounds good, Aubrey. See you soon. Have a good day.
Thanks. Bye, Lindsay.
All right. Bye.